Hey YouTube, we're back here with the 2010 Cadillac SRX, and today we're going to be covering how to replace the backup camera in this vehicle. And I've actually got a really neat trick for you to keep you from having to pull the whole lift gate apart to replace the camera. So this is going to be something that you can literally do in 5 or 10 minutes. Now, some of the symptoms that you might experience if your backup camera is failing is the backup camera, of course, may not work at all, or if yours is like mine, you may intermittently get fuzziness and lines, or just the picture glitching out every now and then. Another thing that we should be able to tell a difference right away after we do this replacement is the color of the picture. And what I mean by that is over time, this camera has started outputting an image that's gotten more and more washed out with less and less color, almost to the point of black and white sometimes. Let's take a quick look at it, what it looks like before we do the replacement, so we can compare. Just to set expectations, this camera is not great. Even the replacement is not going to be great. They put pretty cheap, low resolution cameras in these vehicles. So, it's not something like that's going to increase the resolution or anything like that. But if your camera is glitching out, or the colors are not as vibrant or are almost gone, then this is a great, quick, and easy fix. All right, so let's go ahead and throw it into reverse and check out the current situation. And so that's what it looks like right now. The image, like I said, on these is not great to begin with. Today it looks like I'm getting a decent picture as far as it's not glitching out or doing any weird stuff there. But you can see the color on the grass and everything else is pretty washed out. So we're gonna go ahead and get this camera swapped out, which, like I said, is not a bad process, and then we'll check back and see if it looks any better. All right, before we get into the actual repair, let's take a look at the replacement camera so we can get a better idea of how exactly it's put together and the trick of installing it without tearing the whole liftgate apart. All right, so this is the replacement backup camera, and so it's going to be sitting in the liftgate like this. And if you will notice on this particular one, there's actually a disconnect on top of the camera. Now on my car, this is hardwired in, but if you have a newer build of the SRX and there's this disconnect here, it's going to make your life even easier, and we'll get to that in a little while. But you can actually press down on this little release here, and that pops right out. So if yours is like this, that'll make your job a little bit easier. All right, this is the plug that plugs into the harness in the car. And so basically, the thing we want to take a quick look at here is the sides of the assembly here. And if we zoom in, you can see these little clips here on each side. And so these are what actually holds the camera into the lift gate. So the camera kind of tilts back into the back of the car, or into the back of the lift gate, and snaps up like this. So it'll actually come out like this. So what you're going to want to do is to find a small flat blade screwdriver like this one I've got here. It's just a little cheap one I have. Something that will let you slide it in. And so if you look, this area on each side is actually open. And so if you look closely, you can actually see the clip, the other side of that clip. So let's see if we can get this zoomed in. So I had to get a light here. But if you look closely right here, you can see the inside of that clip. So there's a way that you can get to it from the outside of the car. So I'm going to try to do my best to demonstrate what we're going to try to accomplish. So you're going to want to stick your screwdriver in at an angle, and then you can see how it's catching the side of that clip, and then you'll want to carefully pull down like that, which pulls the clip in. And so you'll work one side at a time, pushing on the top of the assembly. And once you get the first side unclipped, then of course come around the other side and do the same thing and pull that in. And so that's going to be the trick to getting it out of the liftgate without tearing the liftgate apart. All right, so here we are on the back of the vehicle, and we're about ready to get started. Now the official way I believe that they intend for you to replace this camera is to dismantle the liftgate, pull off the interior trim. And so I do have a video which I'll link up here in the top right hand corner, and I'll put in the description below, that outlines that process on how to remove the interior trim. It doesn't specifically address you know, replacing the camera, but it will get you most of the way there. So this whole piece of trim here is held in place by bolts on the inside of the liftgate. So once you pull that trim out, you could get to that, and then there's a bunch of clips, and you'd have to pull it off, and it's just, it looks like a lot of work. So this method will save you all that trouble, but if you would prefer, you can check out my other video on how to get to it from the inside. So just real quick, this camera is orientated like this, and the reason I want to point that out is this wire kind of comes up along the inside of this trim here, and then this plug is going to be plugged in way back in here on the left. And for the purpose of this video, I've already kind of loosened up this wire because it would be really hard to film me trying to get this wire loose. But on my vehicle, the wire was kind of routed up along the edge right here on the inside of this trim. And there seemed to be some sort of a piece of tape or foam that had it in place that you'll want to dislodge before you try to pull the camera out. And then this plug over here was also kind of adhered back in there, so you'll have to kind of pull it loose. That's probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is just getting your finger up in there and getting it loose. Once you do that, the rest of it's not too bad. All right, so first we're going to want to start by pulling loose the left license plate light. So the one that is left of the camera here, and that's pretty easy. Just want to stick a screwdriver up in here, and there's a little bit of a notch on this left-hand edge, and you're just going to want to push the light, push the lens towards the camera. And then pull the light back this way. And then just let that swing out of the way, and you can see it's been raining a bunch here the last couple days, so I've got all kinds of water dripping out everywhere. All right, so let's see if we can pry this out of here using the trick I talked about earlier. You're going to want to resist the temptation to stick your screwdriver between this black and the chrome, because this assembly here is plastic, and you will damage it if you do that. But if we stick this in here from the inside, we won't damage anything. And of course, we're replacing this camera, so if we nick it up or anything, it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to stick this in here at an angle and catch the bottom of that clip. You might have to feel around for it a little bit. And when you think you do, stick one finger up in the hole beside the camera and start applying some pressure. And you can see mine popped out pretty easily. Now I didn't even have to do this other side, probably because I've already pulled this down once and it's a little easier. But on mine initially, I had to you know, pop the one side loose and then stick the screwdriver in and then pop the other side loose separately. Okay, so now that we've got this loose, we can pull it out, and then we'll get the wiring harness out. All right, so now remember the plug is buried here in the left, and then the wire is routed up along here. And like I said, you might have to actually loosen this wire up here from the tape before you pull this down. Mine was stuck in there, that wire was stuck up in there so good that this didn't want to pull all the way out until I dislodged it. But like I said, I've already kind of been fooling around with this. So I'm going to feel around for that wire. You can see it's popped out. And then pull the plug out. And don't forget, this is likely not going to pull that out that easily for you. It's kind of originally kind of adhered or clipped up in the car, so you'll have to kind of tug on it just right. And you can see how just water and road filth and everything else gets up inside of here. So it's kind of nasty, especially on a nearly 10-year-old car. But this plug is pretty easy. There is a little tab right here that you're going to press in on. So we'll squeeze that together, and that pops out. And then you can fish this out. And that's it. So as I'm sure you can imagine, installation is pretty much the reverse of what we just did. So I'm going to fish this cable up in here. And then you'll want to, the camera kind of hinges here in the back, so we'll want to stick it in the back first, like that. And then we'll want to gently push up on the front edge until you hear it click. And then, of course, we're going to want to line this up. It's got a couple little wings, and it'll only go in the way it's supposed to go in. And again, until it clicks in place, make sure it's in there real good. And then it's going to be important that we shove this back in here as far as we can to allow us room for this license plate light to snap back in. So that can be a little bit tricky. We're just going to shove it in there. I'm not really worried about trying to clip or whatever, however it was adhered back in there. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to go anywhere. And so as long as it's in there deep enough, then you're good to stick this light back in. And see, that's I haven't quite got it in there enough because it's interfering with that snapping in place. So actually, I'm going to route this behind this cable for the license plate so that we can get a little bit better, get it in there a little better. There we go. That slid in there a lot better that time. And so, get the license plate light snapped back in, and there we go. It's in there real good now. And you can see how on this original camera, like I alluded to before, this wire is hardwired into the back of the camera. So if yours isn't hardwired like this, if you pull that out and get it loose enough, you could conceivably just unplug it from the back of the camera and not have to fool with that other plug. You would still have to get enough slack in the wire, of course, to do that, but I'm not sure when they made that change. I'd be curious to know. But that's always an option that might save you a little bit of time. All right, so here we are back inside the vehicle. It's kind of cloudy out today, so the sun's going in or out, so I don't know how good a comparison this will be. But let's take a look and see if we at least have some better color now when we throw this into reverse. Oh yeah, and I can tell the difference already. I'm not sure how well that shows up on camera, and maybe I'll do a split screen in post here, but you can see here all that green that you couldn't see before. Everything's a lot more defined than it was before, and most importantly, we shouldn't have any more issues with with the picture glitching out or getting fuzzy or things like that. So that's it. And like I said, that's a repair that going out of that direction, I mean, it shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes. It's a lot easier than pulling the whole liftgate apart and pulling that trim off and risking damaging the trim or the outside of the vehicle, prying things off and that kind of thing. So not a bad little repair. The camera, which I'll have a part number in the video description, I picked it up on eBay. I mean, I'm sure you could pick it up at your local dealer. At the time of filming, I got it on eBay for right around $130. I'm sure it's probably close to $200 at the dealer would be my guess. But in any case, I hope that helps you guys out. If you would, consider subscribing to my channel. We've got a pretty big catalog of videos now for both the second generation SRX as well as the second generation CTS. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next video.